And it's all okay as long as you're all having fun until it's your turn. Why aren't you laughing? That's society, folks. You better think about it. Also, another thing too, as I said, people can really turn very quickly when it comes to profit and morality and what's right and what's wrong. When it comes to their own profit, they can suddenly jump in an abyss. I've noticed that my whole life long. As I say, they're taking away the opioids and so on, and really make it a big, massive scare of opioids. I mean, you've got governments who open up clinics for people to walk in and get their injections of heroin and so on. But for folk who really need it, for what it's intended for, pain, etc., they're cutting them out. Because, you see, the big boys have decided you're going to get marijuana instead. That's the reason for it. I'll put articles up where they even say, that a good placebo is as good as an opioid. Really? Nonsense. They're also telling you, too, that there's too many folk getting operations. Women, for instance, having hysterectomies when they probably didn't need them. Probably. It's a big word, that, probably. And guys having operations on prostates where they probably didn't really need them. And it's all getting you used to the fact you're not going to get these operations down the road. Unless you're awfully rich. Or you really count in society as somebody and not a nobody. But as they bring in, is it amazing, as they bring in the legalized cannabis, marijuana, it says that they're bringing in the super skunk cannabis, super strength skunk cannabis. This stuff is way more potent than the stuff from the 60s and 70s. And it says here the potent strain has all but forced out the lowest strength form of the drug. The study was led by King's College London, who analysed nearly 1,000 samples. As many other ones have done it across the world too. Psychiatrists warn smokers high-potency cannabis can cause mental illness, hallucinations, and all kinds of things. But also it can trigger psychotic disorders, the studies have found. So they know all this stuff. It's been done many times before, these same studies, years ago. But the potent strain has all but forced out the lower strength forms of the drug and made up 94% of all cannabis seized in 2016. This is the time when they're legalizing all this stuff. You think it's all coincidence, don't you? Don't you? You always do. There's no conspiracies in the world or See, any plans are kept secret, and most things to do with society's directional planning is kept secret from the public. And it's never admitted to till many years after things are implemented. It's always the same. That's what they call it, classified from the public, not to be released till the year blah, 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 just like the NAFTA deal. And it says here that, for those who don't know, the NAFTA deal has the bulk of the documentation literally underground in a safe place, not to be released for like 2050, I think it was, something like that. The little short form they gave the public was a very filtered system, few pages really, as it was all about. Because it did have the amalgamation in it of the whole of the Americas, actually. Anyway, back to what I'm talking about, cannabis here. So believe you me, you probably know people who'll go along with it and say the same thing. They'll have no problem if they were selling it themselves to people, regardless of the fallout it's going to have in society. People have no problems adjusting morality when it comes to their purse and their income. That's what's wrong with society, isn't it? Greed. It's incredible, especially nowadays. Anyway, Dr. Marta De Forte, scientist at King's College London, said in previous research was shown that regular users of high-potency cannabis carry the highest risks for psychotic disorders compared to those who have never used cannabis. The increase of high-potency cannabis in the streets poses a significant hazard towards users' mental health and reduces their ability to choose more benign types because they get used to it. It's addictive, naturally, if it's high potency. And it goes on up with the THC level. That's the active drug that causes it, which it works in people. It says the weaker cannabis resin, which THC content of 6%, is up 4% in 2008, but a lot lower than 14% found in skunk. And it's the compound which gives the users a high. Quite amazing, really, though, that the work has been done on it all. But this is the time, of course, that they're getting folk used to it. And even if only a certain percentage become addicted to the high potency stuff, there'll be more people getting addicted to it, as more folk think it's quite normal when governments are actually selling it to the public. Our governments now are pimps and are drug pushers, as a licensed prostitution and so on in different countries. Seriously. Think about it. Just think about what it is. They're the pimps, and they are the drug pushers. Canada, here in Ontario, there's articles about them legalizing it and selling it in the liquor licensing boards where they sell the booze. Because in Ontario here, the government rakes in the cash off all booze sales. That's why they have the monopoly on selling alcohol. Special government outlets. And that's where they're going to sell all the dope as well. Great stuff, mate. So here's an article here about Ontario. It says the government of Ontario says it will provide $40 million from its share of federal marijuana taxes to municipalities to help them cover law enforcement and safety costs associated with pot legalization. Another great make work project, isn't it? The province says the money which will be provided to municipalities up front will come from the first 2 years of federal excise duties on pot producers. So they're going to rake in just on taxes. They aren't going to tell us how much they're going to rake in, but they expect to be able to pay out $40 million from what's getting in to help them cover the law enforcement. More law enforcement, eh? More law enforcement. So your government sells you the dope, and now they're going to police it. Big time. You better think what on earth your governments are anymore, huh? What are they? Everything is so corrupt now. It says, Ontario Minister of Community Safety and Correctional Services, Marie-Frances Lalonde, says the $40 million, I like that, community safety, $40 million fund will ensure that municipalities have the resources to enforce the marijuana laws and combat issues such as impaired driving and illegal sale of marijuana. They're going to give, the police are just laughing at this because it's going to give them so much extra work now, which they want. Make work project. For more rides on the roads and everything and looking for dope and as you're driving. And they even have a lot of these, there's even police guys who are way up in the police forces, got shares and all this stuff. I mentioned it before. And other ones too, they're up there too, and politicians have got shares and new type of breathalyzer type machines that the cops will all have. What a great make work project, eh? As they start checking drivers to see if they're stoned. And that's everybody. Isn't that wonderful? Going from A to B and then you start getting stopped because all the junkies are on the road. Well, of course they're going to be on the road. They know this. So Ontario says the money will be provided on a per household basis and be adjusted so that every municipality will get a minimum of $10,000 each. And that'll go into pockets, of course, it always does, I'm sure. It says they're also cutting down on illegal storefront dispensaries, so it's only the licensed ones. And I'm telling you, it's another thing too, and I know this for a fact. I know the history of the booze, the alcohol organizations down through history, and who ends up getting all the licensing. They're monopolies. The same thing's coming in here. And all these little guys that think they're going to do great in it, believe you me, will be forced out step little by little, and the big monopolies will take it over once they're up and running with their pot farms. They'll take it over. They'll let you run it all and get it started and do all the hard work, but they don't take it over. That'll happen. Of course it will. It's already planned. But that's what they do. And then when you see that, when you really see that, as I say, and they're cutting back real painkillers for folk who really, really need it. There's an article here called The Opioid Crisis, the real opioid crisis. It says the news isn't talking about. And it's from a site, it's called Members of Not Dead Yet, National Grassroots Disability Rights Organization. And some of them are living with chronic pain themselves. It says, based on the knowledge of the disability community through personal experience and through our work, we have not seen disabled people with chronic pain experience opioid use disorder. They don't. Folk who really need this stuff aren't taking it to get addicted to it. They need it to feel pain. Folk who get addicted to it want the high. They want the experience of it. They're different people altogether. This is what you're seeing is many disabled people who are suffering due to lack of access to opioid medication, previously available as part of comprehensive strategies and approaches to address chronic pain. They're experiencing an increase in chronic pain and other symptoms associated with that pain. Disabled people and others with chronic pain are rarely the ones who are abusing opioids, but they are the ones who are having to deal with chronic pain symptoms without access to medications that made this pain more tolerable. That's what's happening. It's a good site, actually, and very good articles with it, too. I'll put them up, mind you, too. Another article here, too. Every morning, Kevin Thompson takes a short stroll from his apartment at the Crosstown Clinic, where he signs in, gets his prescription medicine and sits in a small room and injects it before heading off to work. He follows this routine up 3 times a day and has done so virtually every day for more than a dozen years. The medicine is diacetylmorphine, the medical term for prescription heroin. And he's 47 years old. He was a heavy user of street drugs such as cocaine and heroin since his early 20s. He was at college and studying hairdressing when he was robbed and lost his money and ended up homeless. Just to get by, he started selling drugs and soon became his own best customer. But this is really to tell you that they can walk in and they can get their heroin shoot-ups, but folk in chronic pain can't. Do you think there's something wrong here? Huh? Well, they'll say, well, you can get marijuana. Because marijuana is going to be a big, massive monopoly very quickly. And they're looking at incredible money. And the more folk they can get into it for the folk and off opioids and into their drug, the better. Isn't it amazing, eh, what's happening? It really is. It's nice to be just a witness going through time, isn't it? Because that's what we're doing. We're witnesses. We're watching the end of a civilization. As the new planned, nothing to do with happenstance, the planned society is forced upon everybody else. It really is incredible to watch it all. But when you go into academia and what they're training, all these incredible different organizations that they are, and nonsensical courses they get in academia, and all facets of society, where they come out talking like robots with their own language. These are the people who force this stuff upon the general public because their minds have been warped with their training. And I really mean that. I really do mean that. And they're the last ones to ever figure that out themselves. You know, as humans become more humanistic, in the religious vein I'm talking about, because humanism, remember, secular is a religion, humanism. And you're taught that there's no problems about classes of society and types of classes, and the ones at the bottom. They've no problem with that at all, none whatsoever. But the corruption amongst them is incredible. Another article too talks about the Ontario Cannabis Store. It can be abbreviated OCS. Isn't that wonderful? So they've got the logo for the stores to be across Ontario at least. And it's a circle with 3 letters in it, OCS. A circle. You know what the taxpayers paying for this? And the brand strategy to this guy, it seems to be one fella, as far as I can see, well connected, obviously. Guy's called Leo Burnett. And the Liquor Control Board of Ontario expects the total cost of all brand and marketing from this guy, Leo Burnett, and the little logo, right, to be approximately $650,000. That's your tax money there. Do you think that's honest work here? What's going on, eh? What on earth is going on here? I think, I could get a monkey to draft that thing better than a circle with these letters in it. Huh? Don't you think so? Really? We get slapped in the face all the time in this day and age. And government throws your money around and also tells you what they're bringing in themselves and within government and organizations associated with governments. We're getting plundered, folks. Plundered. They're supposed, they call themselves civil servants. But here to serve the public. Who is kidding who? Huh? Why do we go along with this rubbish of pretending that if they're servants, what on earth are we? Huh? Ragtown or something? We're all covered in rags, wearing rags, paying for all this rubbish. We're plundered like never before, and that's a system that humanism always brings you into. Winners and losers, eh? Winners and losers. They're quite blatant about it too. And there's no morality left to guide humanity, like you see. And you're all fair game to be plundered in all different ways and areas, etc. And that's how it is. Centuries and centuries and centuries to try to get decency stamped across society. Only to lose it all very quickly with secular humanism. And the depreciation of human life, the value of human life, as UNESCO had planned through Julian Huxley and others that worked with it. And it starts with the children. Even before they're born, you diminish life. And then you get used to that and accept it. Then they go in for, let's euthanize the elderly or the sick. And you accept it. And then you say, let's euthanize the children too. And you accept it. And it's all okay as long as you're all having fun until it's your turn. Why aren't you laughing? That's society, folks. You better think about it. And it's planned that way. The amount of studies, I'll put one up tonight to do with fake news. MIT is one of the big investigators into society. They have stacks of studies on us going all the time. They have access to the internet and all your personal stuff too, by the way, to see what you're chatting about and categorizing it all, etc. And I read some articles a few years back, remember, where a professor there and his class were putting out fake news, actually fake histories, actually, to see how well it would pick up and trend across the internet. So here's the same university doing studies on fake news to see how it's working and why folk like it so much. We're studied like no other creature on the planet is studied. Because, as Marx was correct in the one thing for sure, that all wealth comes from labor. But the wealthy live off those who labor. And this day and age is glorified. Greed is glorified like never before, getting worse all the time. It really is. There are people living today who are trillionaires. And the multi-billionaires have their own islands across the planet. They're living beyond any king's dreams of times gone by. Because with the advent of free trade and the shipping of all your factories across to China for cheap labor, they've never had profits like they have today. It's incredible, incredible. When you look at even the deals that China does in Indonesia and other places, where they can get whole forests for their products, so incredibly cheap, even the swaps for certain deals. And the profits they're making are incredible from whatever they produce. And that's called winners and losers, as I say. Winners and losers. That's what Jack Satali called it too. Winners and losers in the coming New World Order. We're here. And you're supposed to celebrate it. You're supposed to celebrate your own destruction, the cultural destruction and everything else. I'll put up the articles even from Ireland that's talking about the fact that culture is to be destroyed very quickly over the years. And their government even used their tax money to put the propaganda out to train them to think it was all okay and nice and good. We all get that, actually. We're all given indoctrination to just think, well, it's all good and nice, blah, blah, blah. Whatever's pushed on us is good and nice, and isn't that wonderful? And being a good little person, you'll say, well, I want to please people. I want to be a people pleaser. I want to show them that I also think it's nice and good. Just to be good, you see. They're training us to even look forward to our own destruction, or even our own death for that matter. Why do you want to keep on living? Why do you? That's part of the strategy, the psychology behind it all. They have experts now, they fly around the hospitals before someone dies in the hospitals. I read articles a few years ago, on the air in fact at the time, where they send teams out to talk to the relatives of people who are in the hospital, maybe through accidents or whatever, in order to try to convince them to sign over the organs of the person before they're dead. And they're like kind of like grief counselors, but they're not. The people aren't dead yet, but that's their whole idea, is to try and convince them to sign everything over, because it's a big business too. We are the business, even before you're dead. Remember that they want your organs out the body while you're still living. And the last one is the one who takes the heart out. They take everything out beforehand with other specialist departments. Rather ghoulish, isn't it? We are a business. There's even articles in Ontario, because we're avant-garde. You see, we're cutting edge in Ontario. In Canada, we always say we're cutting edge. We're progressive. That's what it means, progressive, along the agenda, you see. And in Canada, they had, in Ontario too, they had where you could actually pour you or your granny down into your garden if you want to. But they actually were using some chemical system of liquid, they call it liquid crematorium. They put you in a kind of tank thing and dissolved you, and then poured you down into the sewage system, the wastewater. Do you understand what's happening? And we think nothing of it. When you devalue human life and others, you're doing it in yourself. Never forget that. Never forget that, because one day it's your turn. Think about it. Think about it. Because that's where it's all going. Hate to be a kind of downer tonight, but it's not a downer really. See, bad news, as I say, has to be looked at seriously. And terrible things have to be discussed and looked at. And often you can avoid them, but you won't avoid them if you don't discuss or look at them. This looking away or looking at the bright side of things is not healthy, except for those who plan it that way, who want it that way. But for the rest of you, it's not healthy. You have to look at the nasty things in life. History, when you look back on it, is a horror show. You have bouts of pleasant people living their own lives in rural communities and so on, down through history. Then the cities come, worse things happen, then big wars happen. Wars get bigger and bigger, and horror comes along. When they change their systems into even communism and so on, the millions, 80-odd million sometimes, they say, were killed, slaughtered by their own governments. Never forget these things, folks. Our brains haven't changed. Maybe they've shrunk a bit. That's about it. Think about it. Really think about it. You're given a brain to think, use it. And don't spend so much time letting your masters program your brains for you. Use it yourself instead. Don't follow people and get used. Don't get used. The United Nations loves all these changes because they want it all. The UN declared the enemy of mankind to be the individual. They want you to be the collective. Followers. And the choice is yours. From myself, Alan Watt from Ontario, Canada, it's good night. May your God or your gods go with you.
If you want a picture of the future, imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever. The moral to be drawn from this dangerous nightmare situation is a simple one. Don't let it happen. It depends on you.
I find no entertainment in it anymore. Not when you've seen behind the veil. You know, it's all Brennan Circus, smoke and mirrors. It's hard to get into storylines, and because you know it's all bullshit. It's just all bullshit. Everything's bullshit, and you see the symbolism. You pick up on the underlying messages and agendas being pushed, and then it just gets upsetting, and then you get fucking pissed. So I don't expose myself to that shit. Hi-yo.
I don't really know. I mean, as an awake person, when you can't reach out to people, I mean, what are you supposed to do, and how are we supposed to keep our hopes up? I mean, it's so depressing when you think of it.
Yeah, it is, because the conditioning on most people, when you see them and they can't look you in the eye or they think you're crazy, is because the condition has taken perfectly on them. And you're looking at conditioned robots, really. And they'll turn on you too. At the right time, they'll turn on you. But that's the perfect conditioning. The ones who are awake generally have always been awake, or they've known something was wrong. And they can't be conditioned quite the same way. But you're in amongst most people where the conditioning has worked perfectly, and that's the problem. I've always said the elite have a symbiosis amongst the masses of people, the general mass of people, because the masses always look towards government to solve problems, even if it's a fake problem put out by the government. We immediately run to help us, save us, you know. There's only very few people in between, in the middle, who don't want to be stinking rich and rule everyone else's lives for them. And they don't want to belong to the general mob that just goes and watches all the porn on their internet all day long, or ball games or whatever. So it's a small group really who don't belong to either camp. That's a problem. Because as I say, the masses have a symbiotic relationship with the elite. And eventually when they get all their agendas through, the elite will turn around and say, we couldn't have done it without you, to the masses.
Yeah, and that's such a... I think it's disgusting. There's no other word for it. It's just utterly disgusting. Yeah?
It is, and it's very depressing until you realize that you might be surprised how many of those in between who are not brainwashed or conditioned and who don't seek personal power can still have a voice and start changing things around. And that's the only hope that we have, is to postpone it at least long enough. They'll either wither away, or they'll come out with an even heavier hand. But that's when even the masses start to see it and they know something's wrong, when the heavy hand of the monster comes upon them. And that's what it might take. Stall them long enough until timetables, according to those at the top, cannot be stalled. If you can stall their timetables, they get awfully angry and they start using force. Force is, at least the use of force, terrifies the public, and maybe even to waking up a little bit. And that's all we can really hope for. It's because it's too perfect. It's been here too long, this system.
But we cannot use violence and force.
No, they're so perfectly good at getting us to kill each other or fight each other. This has been a strategy for centuries, and it's a perfect art of how to get it all going. We can't use that at all. But by the same token, we have to make sure that the elites don't come out with a heavy hand and start using open force on the general public. Here's the thing too. They have been using force, or at least deadly intentions on the general public, because they know how they've been dumbing us down. They know when they rob your mind, it's the same as killing you. And when they inject things into you too that make the autism bloom, and it also makes everyone quite a few points lower in the IQ scale. It makes us all sick, so that we'll die off early, infertile, etc. They are physically, literally, this is a murder. A murderous rampage has been going on for a long time under the usual covert actions of the United Nations that always deny what they're doing. One of the top players in this, who wrote about it, who taught Rhodes Scholars back in the 40s and 30s, internationalist again, who spoke, by the way, so he made a great speech in Sweden, was Toynbee. There were two Toynbees, father and son, and one took over from the other. But they literally taught the Rhodes Scholars for internationalism and to penetrate all governments and push them towards internationalism. He said, we always deny with our mouths what our hands are doing. And that was to become the mantra for every organization within the United Nations. We always deny with our mouths what our hands are doing. And that's still their strategy today.
Respect the elderly, mother.
I miss my calling.